Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted. It's the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, I'll be joined by Chad McManus. He is the chair of the Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance. But first, this message from our sponsors. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. With more than 30 years specializing in loss prevention for big box retail, as well as certifications as a fraud examiner, forensic interviewer, and loss prevention professional, our guest Chad McManus brings an expert business perspective to our conversation on asset protection in the face of organized retail crime. Chad, thanks so much for joining us today from Georgia, I believe.
Yep. Thanks, Marty. Ackworth, Georgia, so just outside of Atlanta, but honored to be on here and a privilege to talk to you today.
All right, let's jump in first with this, because I think you have the best background of anybody who's been on the show so far. I see a lot of vinyl records and some old school video games.
Yeah.
Looks like you're a music aficionado, a collector, and the video games. That's pretty cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have a problem with collecting vinyl records. I guess that if that's the worst thing I've got going on, I'm okay. I was a kid that grew up in the gaming era. I had every game from Atari, Pong, all the way up to PlayStation 5, and against my mom's wishes, hung out at the arcade as a kid and just loved those old school video games. So when they came out with some of these replicas that you could, put in the office, I bought a few. So if I get stressed out, I'm on a call or something, I'll just jump back there and play a quick game of Miss Pac-Man. And then the vinyl record collection just happened before COVID. My uncle gave me 200 records. He said, have at it. And I'm up to 1,800 now. And it's just like, it's addicting. I love searching. I love going to flea markets and shops and finding records of classic rock, rock music type records. So yeah, plenty going on there. So it's hopefully it's not distracting for the audience, but we can talk about vinyl records and video games as well as organized retail crime.
So we're going to get to ORC after this, but I want to put you on the spot and say 1,800 records behind you. What's the one that you go and save if everything catches on fire? What's the one you can carry out in an emergency?
Man, I don't know. I would probably leave the animals behind and try to get as many as I can. If my wife heard that, she'd be upset. But my favorite band is Rush, and so I have all the original Rush record set. So I would probably try to grab those and make it out with that lot, because those are the ones that kind of started the collection. But you bring up a good point. I'm worried about that. I may have to get some insurance and start logging these a little bit better, because if something does happen, I will be in trouble.
It's worth protecting a collection like that for sure. All right, let's shift to the topic at hand for the day. You serve as the Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance, or GROC, one of my favorite new acronyms or initialisms, GROC. I like that.
Yep.
How did GROC come to be, and what is the main focus and mission of that organization?
Yeah, so we started this organization back in 2012. The Organized Retail Crime Alliance came into fruition, but prior to that, we had some smash and grab issues going on here in Atlanta around 2010, and so a group of retailers, legislators, and law enforcement folks, along with the Georgia Retail Association, kind of got together and started talking about how we can improve some legislation to put some stiffer penalties behind smash and grabs that were happening around that time. And so the alliance kind of came out of that, and we just continued developing it. It grew over time, and here we are in 2024, going on almost 14 years of this alliance in place. And really the goal when we started was bridging the gap between law enforcement and retail investigators, because we saw that hey, law enforcement agencies were doing their thing. They were investigating, crimes in their jurisdiction, and the retailers in the AP world were doing their thing, but a lot of us weren't talking. So, we needed that partnership. So originally we just said, hey, let's start, getting together and bridging that gap between those two entities and talk about these retail crimes, share information, focus on raising awareness with law enforcement, because we had some agencies and officers that just didn't understand what organized retail crime was. And an example would have been, back in the day, if somebody got pulled over and they had a truckload of razors, nobody might think anything about that. But today, because of that partnership, hopefully the agency or the folks that are involved in GROC are going to go, wait a minute, something's going on. This guy's got a truckload of razors in the back of his trunk. He's not just, buying those to keep clean shaven throughout the course of the year. He's doing something with it. So we really put that effort together to share that information, to try to bridge that gap. We also wanted to do a lot about strengthening the partnerships when it comes to operations and targeting specific boosters that were impacting retailers, not only in the city of Atlanta, but really statewide. And we just found that as we had strengthened numbers, as we started sharing information, sharing about these crimes that were taking place in this jurisdiction, that things, we continued to put a dent and disrupt organized retail crime here in Georgia.
Yeah. What current trends are you seeing in organized retail crime, and what are retailers' most pressing concerns right now from your perspective?
Yeah, so let me answer that last question first. So, I mean, at the end of the day, safety is the priority number one for businesses and for retailers. I obviously work in the retail industry as well as being the chair of GROC, and our focus is safety of our employees and safety of our customers. So we're seeing a lot of retailers making strategic decisions based on specific risk factors that they may be experiencing. As far as trends, one of the things that we've seen and that we've talked about in our information gathering meetings and some of our partnerships, really we're seeing a lot of violence stepping up, and smash and grabs and armed robberies and large theft, where folks coming into the retail establishment are getting violent. You can Google any retail space, and you'll probably see some news article on the internet about injury to an employee or injury to somebody, as somebody was walking out of the store with a ton of merchandise. So we starting to see violence tick up a little bit. And then the other thing that's kind of come into play, and we're seeing a little bit here in Georgia, is some transnational type theft groups. So groups from South America, booster groups coming up into the states and hitting retailers when it comes to organized retail crime. And then street gangs too. Street gangs are really starting to get heavily involved in organized retail crime, because it is a low risk, high reward type of theft that they can send kids and people that they're trying to get into the gangs to go into the retailers and steal things that they can in turn sell those items and use it for other things to support other types of behavior around there. So I would say over the course of the last couple of years, violence has really taken, kind of taken the forefront as being.
Chad, you're in Georgia. We've had Attorney General Carr from Georgia on the show previously. He's been very active in combating organized retail crime. I wonder if you could tell me what your relationship is like with Attorney General Carr and his team, and how important it is within a state like Georgia to have an Attorney General who is working and invested in solving this issue.
Oh yeah, definitely, Marty. It's very important, and so we do have a partnership with the AG's office. We, as the GROC Alliance, have been invited to come down to some special meetings that he's holding with retailers and other concerned folks in the state, to kind of talk about organized retail crime, talk about those things that the AG's team is focused on, as far as trying to help retailers and make Georgia, one of the best states to conduct business in. So it's very important. We have partnerships through the criminal investigation part of the AG's office. A few of those investigators are tied into our platform with GROC, so we're able to kind of share trends and communicate with his office as well if we start seeing statewide impacts that they can get involved in. Matter of fact, upcoming here in the next few weeks, got some special sessions and meetings that that we've been invited to with the AG's office, as well as previously had a day at the Capitol a few weeks ago where we got to go down and meet with him with a group of retailers as well and just talk about organized retail crime. So definitely appreciate the partnership and the support that the AG's office brings to our alliance and what we're trying to do.
You have something called the Truth platform, but it's TREUTH.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Yeah, so Truth is our information sharing platform. So Truth is an actual organization company that's out there. We'd have to talk to Jason, who's the CEO of there. I have a feeling it has something to do with truth and sleuth, and he kind of brought that together. I may be wrong on that.
All right, I can see that, sure.
He may call me out on there. So the Truth platform is what we use with GROC to basically provide a secure site for retail investigators, law enforcement investigators, the DA's office, crime analysts to kind of collaborate on investigations, post bolos where if something happens at a retailer, they can put the information on the platform. We have over 600 retail investigators and law enforcement people on there. It'll blast out to them and they'll get the information about the crime or whatever took place. And kind of our goal there is to put that message out there. And the hope would be that if I'm an investigator at retailer B and I see where retailer A has posted a booster, I say, hey, I might know that person as well. And now we can connect and we can talk and we can share information. I might have a couple case reports in a few jurisdictions. They may have a plate number or a tag number for the day that crime took place. So it's just a secure platform to allow us to share information about retail crime. And then one of the biggest wins for it is really one of the guys on our council calls it the virtual Rolodex. So depending on the audience, Rolodex may not, people like Rolodex, what's that? But some of us know what that old school Rolodex was, where you flip through and look for numbers. But if you're a member of the Organized Crime Alliance, you're vetted, you go on there, and I, as an investigator, I have the ability to search and look for connections. So if I have a need to contact somebody in DeKalb County, try to pick up the phone and cold call a number and see if you can get a hold of somebody. But by going through the platform, you're going to find somebody that's already engaged in organized retail crime. They're connected through the platform. And again, it's there to bridge the gap. So I can call that agency up and say, hey, this is Chad. I'm on the GROC platform. I noticed you are too. Hey, I've got an investigation. I got a case in your jurisdiction. Can we talk? And it eliminates a lot of that work that you have to try to get those contacts. So we love the platform. We use it in partnership with some other alliances out there, one of them being Florida Force. Is the same thing as GROC that's being done down in Florida. They also use the Truth platform. So from a perspective of sharing information across state lines, you mentioned AG Carr, AG Moody in Florida. They got a big push on organized retail crime down there. So the ability for us as investigators and law enforcement in Georgia to speak and network with people in Florida as well too is a big thing that platform brings to the table.
Could you share with us some examples of successful collaborations between law enforcement agencies and retailers that have been facilitated by this GROC organization? And have these partnerships contributed to addressing organized retail crime in the state of Georgia? How have they done that?
Yeah, so definitely. We still have a ways to go. There's still a lot going on and it continues to be a challenge, but we have had tons of successful collaboration. Just kind of on a high level, we have monthly info sharing meetings. So not only do we have the platform where we can post real-time information, but we get together on a monthly basis and we share information. Probably since 2012, we've done over 150 of those monthly intel sharing meetings, and I'd be hard pressed to even think of one of them where somebody didn't make a connection with something else. Kind of like my example earlier, retailer A or law enforcement agency A talks about a certain investigation they're working, and retailer B says, I know that. I have a case going as well there too. So we've seen a lot of collaboration through the info sharing, through the monthly intel meetings to kind of make a difference. We have an annual retail crime conference here in Atlanta where we bring everybody together for a full day of networking and talking about organized retail crime. And then we also have done something over the last few months that we brought back after COVID kind of slowed us down a little bit. But we've had some successful what we call blitz operations with agencies where the GROC partnership, you will identify a high level shopping area in a jurisdiction. We'll partner with retailers, kind of, initiate some communication and some discussion between retailers and law enforcement, and we'll pick a day or two and blitz that area with law enforcement and focus on organized retail crime. And so most recently we did one in Dunwoody over the holiday season that just in one day we had about 8 examples of arrests made, several $1,000s in recovery. So just focusing on those blitz operations too is a big thing, a collaboration. And then finally, I would just reference, a lot of cases out there that I could just speak to, cell phone theft cases, multi-retailer fragrance crews that are hitting, every jurisdiction you can think of in Atlanta, where we've just been able to have special meetings or come to the table and share that information and get these bad actors arrested and taken off the street and prevent them from doing more damage.
The theme I'm picking up on is that the retail crime syndicates are organized, and the more organized the counteroffensive to that can be, the better off the overall effort.
Yeah, definitely. We see some of these organized crime syndicates that look like, corporations. I mean, they've got org charts, they've got, middlemen, fence, the whole nine, all the way up to the people that are running it. And so, they're organized. They're doing surveillance on retailers to see what retailers are doing. Investigators are doing surveillance on, so there's a lot going on there. So we definitely, find value in our partnership and having that structure, doing the things we do, because the criminal element's doing the same thing.
So we've talked a little bit about the coordination among law enforcement agencies and different folks trying to attack it that way. I want to talk about community outreach and why that is an important part of ORC prevention. Can you discuss some of the outreach and education efforts that you're involved in?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a big part. When we started this thing back in 2012, we kind of had a 4-pillar approach to it. We wanted to, bridge the gap, like I talked about. We wanted to bring people together for training, increase the awareness around organized retail crime. We wanted to impact the legislative arm that could make a difference when it comes to retail crime, and then of course education, because whether it's an agency or a retail store, I mean, new people are coming into the industry every day, and so I think it's important that we promote the message of, hey, this is what organized retail crime is. You're going to experience it at some point. It's far-reaching. It can get involved in all kinds of other crimes, from organized retail crime to we've seen all the way up to terrorism involvement with organized retail crime. So we really do put a focus on trying to make the partnerships enhanced by that education piece. We're the Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance, so we have a partnership with the Georgia Retailers Association, which helps us from the legislative piece. So we can, put some focus on things that are going on legislatively in the state of Georgia. The annual conference, like I mentioned, we bring people together to have, conversations about retail crime, training on trends. And then kind of that outreach piece is making sure that we're trying to give back to these communities as well, too, that we may have a blitz in, or we may have, organized retail crime rampantly going on, because we see that a lot of the agencies are doing outreach programs as well to try to keep kids off the street or keeping kids getting involved in organized retail crime. So we've partnered with, in the past, Atlanta Police Foundation, Care for Cops, Community Teen Coalition, just to try to give back and support those organizations and agencies making a difference, and trying to keep the kids off the streets and involved in ORC. And I'll close that kind of comment out by, I mentioned the holiday blitz that we talked about. So when we did that, not only did we have the success in catching some bad guys, but everybody involved in it brought in a brand new toy, and we donated it back to the police station. They were in turn able to use that for some of their community awareness when it comes to things that they're doing in the field. And then I do want to make one more point, else I'll kick myself for not mentioning it. But we love our partnership with some of the universities here in the state of Georgia. So we've got a great partnership with Kennesaw State University and Georgia State University. We actually have a GROC scholarship set up at both those universities where students can learn about retail crime, they can learn about asset protection. If they're going into an internship, they can apply for the scholarship, and we'll give them $1,000 to offset some of those expenses of being in the internship. A perfect example is you might have a student at KSU, which is in Kennesaw. They may get an internship at the GBI, which is about an hour and a half away. So they're driving, there's gas, maybe they need some new outfits to wear. So having those scholarships kind of helps with that educational piece as well. And then letting students know that are criminal justice majors that, hey, we need great law enforcement. We need people in law enforcement officers to continue to be there and take those positions. But there's a world of the private sector as well too, that, there's investigators like me and like a lot of the retailers have, that they could go and seek a career in that as well too. So we kind of look at all aspects of anything we can do from a community standpoint, as well as catching bad guys, but also kind of giving back to the community.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. How does GROC leverage alliances with organized retail crime associations in other states to address the recurring involvement of certain individuals or groups in organized retail crime? Because Georgia, you've mentioned Florida, you've got Alabama, like you're surrounded by a bunch of different states, some that are pretty easy to access. So I'm guessing a lot of these crimes cross state lines.
Yeah, definitely. So you'll see if you do the quick Google search on organized retail crime alliances, I think every state but maybe 2 or 3 has some sort of alliance now. So it's not something that's new. We've been around since 2012. I know some of the original ones that were out there were Cook County or CC Rock up in Chicago. They had LA Orca out in LA. Of course, we used to be called Gray Orca, which was GRA Orca, but we recently, a few years ago, changed to GROC. So these alliances have been out there, and we talk and we communicate. One of our big partners is our friends over at LP Magazine. They support and they host the Orcas in Action webinar where they bring the orcas together, and we share information. We have partnerships with national alliances like CLEAR, which is the Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retailers. So even though we're a state focus, you are exactly right. People are going between Alabama and Georgia and Florida. So that's why it's important that we have that partnership. A few have started up recently. I think Tennessee Orca is the most recent one I can think of that we've kind of helped partner with them and share, some things that we've learned over the years to kind of help develop what they're doing up in Tennessee. And then, again, we just, we're all fighting the same battle. And, somebody might say, well, what does Georgia care about what's going on in Utah? Well, we may not, but who knows? Utah criminals may show up to Georgia one day. So it may be good to have those conversations. And I'll leave you with a quick example of kind of that partnership. So recently, one of the orcas way up north just reached out to us down here in Georgia and said, hey, we know you from the partnership. We've talked to you before, but hey, we've got an investigator that's working a case that stuff's coming out of Georgia. And so, okay, well, thousands of miles away, stuff's impacting us here in Georgia. So we were able to kind of make some connections, get some right people connected with the folks up in that Orca, and, put the case together and work it. So not only is it focusing on Georgia, but again, focusing on other states and even nationally from a perspective to try to make a dent in organized retail crime.
He came here to collect Rush albums and fight organized retail crime, and he's all out of Rush albums to collect, so that's bad news for the bad guys. Chad McManus, thanks for your work fighting back against organized retail crime and for joining us today.
Yep, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, as always, LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We're going to drop one each 2 weeks. We're also on Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. You can find the links below in the show notes. Thanks for being with us, everyone, and keep up the good fight.